Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the show, Logically Leftist. I am your host, Jeff Waldorf, and it's Tuesday, and I've got a great show for y'all. All right, so thank you for tuning in first, and hopefully everybody's having a pretty good day. But yeah, we're back after the long Memorial Day weekend, and I'm talking about stuff like, for example, Tesla not doing so well. Elon Musk, the first buddy, having a tough time in the markets. We got some details on that. Then we have, of course, another criminal pardoned by President Donald Trump. You're not going to be surprised that this sheriff is MAGA and someone who was accused and convicted of taking bribes. I know. We got WWE fans showing just how they feel about Ron DeSantis. Got a story about the Second Amendment here and how transgender Americans are turning towards the Second Amendment for defense. Interesting. We also are going to talk about another, I don't know if it's an affluenza case, if anybody remembers that, but certainly a judge in Utah is getting some pushback for comments that he made, talking about this person's, well, you know, his privilege. Yeah, so insanity. So we've got that. That's the breakdown of what I'm going to talk about today. So before I get into the actual stories, please like and share the stream. It helps out the show, of course, in the respective platforms that you are watching / listening to this on. With that, I guess dive in. Let's do it. All right. We're going to start out with Tesla. Bad news for the first buddy, Elon Musk. The chief twit, who bought the White House for upwards of $250 to $290 million. I'm not entirely sure of the exact monetary figure he gave. Well, anyway, he continues to see backlash in his businesses for tying himself to President Donald Trump. According to data released on Tuesday, Tesla sales across Europe plunged by nearly half last month. Oof, it's a bad trend line. Now, you could say, of course, hey, look, I get it. You know, the economy, it's not so good. There are some problems with the economy, but of course, and then if you say that, you're going to have to admit what is causing the issues with the economy, or I should say the most recent issues, which would be the Trump tariffs, and so that gets kind of embarrassing when you think about it. But okay, sure, you could make an economic argument to say, well, the reason that, they're not selling as many Teslas because nobody got the money. No, it turns out this is happening while other EV companies are actually increasing their market share. Yeah, people are buying electric cars, just not Teslas. All right. So now, according to figures released by the European Automobile Manufacturers Association, or ACEA, sales of Tesla vehicles in 32 European countries fell. Not just fell, they plummeted. Like a Tesla or like a SpaceX rocket. Okay, with a rapid, unscheduled disassembly of their stock prices, or their sales, fell 49%. to 7,261 in April from 14,228 in the same month in the previous year. Oops. Or which I say,
whoopsie.
Yeah. Now, at the same time, sales of battery electric vehicles by all manufacturers rose 28%. But what about gas-powered cars? Certainly, yeah, you could say, well, okay, sure. So there are more people buying electric cars, but what about the gas-powered? People love their gas cars, right? No, it turns out sales of gas and diesel-powered cars went down. Oops. The figures, which cover the European Union's 27 member countries and 5 other nations outside the bloc, back up early data from Sweden, the Netherlands, and Denmark, released at the start of the month, that have pointed to a sales collapse for Tesla. Fascists get wrecked, at least in Europe, to be fair. Hey, you know what? It's kind of Europe's kind of the famous place for wrecking fascists. So, yeah. And look, obviously a lot of this has to do with Elon Musk's right-wing unmasking, I guess, because I don't know. I don't know if he was right-wing his entire life, or if he was, if he was and he was hiding it for a long time, putting out messages, fake messages of, oh, here at Tesla, we are very, very inclusive to everyone. I think love is love. I remember when he would put out those posts and then got dragged even further to the right, radicalized, if you will, by having a transgender daughter who continues to roast him to this day in epic fashion. I love it. But I don't know if it has to do just with that. I think a lot of it does. But that's, again, only one of the factors, right? Aside from the cyber dump, okay, the wank panzer, Tesla hasn't come up with any new vehicle designs. So it's kind of aging, all right? And generally, they're just not making good cars. Their cars kind of blow, or they blow up. Not good. Now, that said, they're not making good vehicles, at least compared to their competition. Especially from, get this, China. That's right. The Chinese EV manufacturers in China are eating Elon Musk's lunch. Okay, that's it. Sales at China's SAIC went up 54% in April, according to the ACEA figures. The SAIC owns many auto brands, including the US-based MG, known for their low-cost EV models. There you go. So, again, China eating Elon Musk's lunch. Awesome. Not only that, but again, I mentioned the trade war earlier, and I think that also is a factor here, which is, of course, why Elon Musk had unsuccessfully attempted to lobby against it. So, yeah. That said, not doing very well on that front. So, or on any front, really. Which is partly, of course, why he decided to pull back on his political spending. Recently at the Qatar Economic Forum, he said, quote, "In terms of political spending, I'm going to do a lot less in the future. I think I've done enough." Enough what? Damage? To yourself? Not just the government, obviously, which he has done a lot of damage to, thanks to Doge. But again, his brand, so it's probably both. Now, GOP strategist Alex Conant said this about Musk, quote, "I think he's feeling a lot of pressure from his other stakeholders, investors at Tesla specifically, to refocus on the car business." What? No, I thought what you liked having a CEO that just kind of disappears, but actually not disappears, but actually goes out in front of the public in the most cringy and ridiculous ways, going to Wisconsin, spending a whole lot of money to just get wrecked, wearing a cheese hat, trying to buy that Supreme Court election. Oops. Oh, no. Boy, did we mess up on that one, he said, except that he didn't. Okay, but yes, the investors aren't exactly happy. The shareholders, stakeholders aren't exactly happy with, Musk and his embrace of the far right, at least the open embrace of the far right. And so they're like, oh my God, you're hurting our business. You're hurting our money. And that's the one thing, of course, they care about. So Conant said of Musk's remarks, quote, he's telling them exactly what they want to hear. Well, yeah. Men added that Musk could, of course, change his mind. Like, for example, I don't know, dropping a bunch of money on the midterms because the Republicans might get wiped out. So, but anyway, look, here's the other thing, right? He's been put as the face of Doge, obviously, and of course of the Trump administration because of all that influence that he had. And I think Trump's advisors were actually really, really happy to allow him to take the smoke from all the really, really unpopular government cuts instituted by Doge. These are cuts that Republicans have been wanting to make anyway, so let's not forget about that. They didn't want the political blowback, you see, because it turns out, cutting all these agencies and all that, pretty unpopular, all right? Pretty unpopular. But here comes Musk to then take all the attention and focus off of them and all the horrible things that they want to do and that they are doing as this special government employee, right? Now he's no longer a special government employee because it had a shelf life of 130 days. So he had to step down. But don't worry, though. He's still there. He still has influence. He was there with the really weird, awkward meeting with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, where he actually ended up showing the South African president claims of white genocide, except it wasn't actually white people, and it was actually in South Africa. It was actually from the Congo. But anyway, he was there at that meeting watching over. So he is still there. He is behind the curtains and could come out at any time to drop a bunch of cash on an election. That $250 million or whatever. Look, it's a drop in the bucket for this guy. He is very, very, very rich. Okay? And so, but that said, he is very, very rich, but he could also be really, really close to over-leveraging himself, okay, when it comes to the Tesla stock. That's where all of his money is tied up, okay? And so, yes, I do think he might be concerned about that, which is why he's trying to get as many government contracts from Trump and the Trump administration as he can. Now, this latest one, by the way, that he's tied up with could see him help and benefit from building Donald Trump's wasteful Golden Dome. Why everything has to be golden, I don't know. It's Donald Trump. He likes golden everything. Golden toilet seats, golden domes, golden showers. It doesn't matter. If it's golden, he likes it. But this project, Golden Dome, is basically dumping money into a giant freaking pit and lighting it on fire. That's what he's doing. And look, this isn't the first time the United States government has helped out these defense contractors, these corporations that are all promised to have a missile shield. We're going to have a missile shield. It's going to be great. No, we've been wasting money on this for decades. Okay, all the way back in Ronald Reagan. In fact, Ronald Reagan is pretty much, ground zero, patient zero for screwed up government. All right. Now, the development, this is since the development of the first interceptors that were made back in 1962, the government has actually spent about more than $530 billion on multiple ineffective missile defense schemes. So according to Stephen Schwartz, a nuclear budget analyst, over $453 billion of that was spent in failed efforts launched by Reagan in '83 as part of his Star Wars defense missile system. Yes, that's right. Instead of, feeding people or combating poverty or anything like that, housing, affordable housing, He spent $500 billion on the military for crap that didn't even work. And of course, Donald Trump's doing the same thing and will likely have the same result. Not that they give a crap. Okay. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that a Golden Dome system would actually cost as much as $831 billion over 2 decades. Wow. You know, I mean, sure, we're cutting Medicaid, for the poorest people in this country, but at least we're going to have a non-functional missile defense system. Yeehaw! America. So stupid. It's so stupid. We live in the stupid country. Stupid. We have idiot leaders that are wasting all of this money. But hey, you know what? To them, it's not a waste because somebody's getting freaking rich. All right. and look, I know Donald Trump's claiming that, we have the technology now. We can build it. We can build the Golden Dome. It'll be great. We can do what Reagan couldn't do. Except for no. Okay. Scientists said that even if all the complex technology and computer software involved worked flawlessly together, which, of course, anybody who's an IT knows that is never the case, an adversary could still defeat the system. How, you say? How could they defeat the Great Golden Dome? By launching a bunch of missiles at it. Isn't that the whole purpose of the Golden Dome, to shoot down all the missiles? No, if you launch enough missiles at it, then you could beat it. You could overwhelm the system, and these missiles could also be defeated by basic countermeasures that could spoof the sensors. What a freaking boondoggle. This is worse than the Trump wall that could be defeated by simple ladders. I mean, seriously, though. But once again, it doesn't matter to them if it works or not, because people are getting rich off this stuff, off the military-industrial complex. All right? And the people that are getting these contracts are, of course, they're all MAGA. They're people like Elon Musk. They're people like Peter Thiel. So, I mean, Musk's company estimates that the initial design contracts alone could be worth between $6 to $10 billion. And it's not just Musk, by the way. You've got Thiel's company Palantir and drone builder Endereel that will help design and build a system. I hate that they're using names from Lord of the Rings because I love Lord of the Rings. Okay? And using the evil stuff. They might as well just call it the Eye of Mordor or something, because that's what it feels like we're in. All right? The Eye of Sauron defense system. What is going on here? No, you're not supposed to emulate that. That is not a good thing. Of course. So, but this is where our money will likely be going, not for food for hungry people, not for education, to educate kids, or healthcare, or housing, or anything that really helps society, but to just rich tech bros and their shit toys. So with all of that, it's for me, it's hard to believe that Elon Musk would actually care about boycotts. I'm not saying like, oh, don't boycott him. No, totally boycott him, right? I'm just saying like, why would he care about these boycotts at this point? I don't know. Maybe at some point these contracts are going to run out, or maybe in the next administration they'll get canceled, and there'll be that. And then of course the investors, they're already not happy with him ignoring essentially his car company or anything like that. So maybe some of those businesses might go under or whatever. He'll get over leveraged. I don't know. We'll see. Have to see what happens. And more importantly, if Elon Musk ends up seeing any sort of consequences for getting involved and essentially purchasing our country for a fascist. Yeah. Musk got great return on investment for his donations, received more in government contracts, and eliminated the investigations into his company's 100% FGM 13. Nailed it. And that's why I'm saying that I don't think he's too concerned about this right now. But again, well, we're going to have to see. Okay. Moving on to the next story here. Oh boy. Israel's Iron Dome is roughly the size of New Jersey. A Golden Dome is idiotic. Well, yes.
You idiot.
They're not exactly the smartest people, but once again, somebody's getting rich. So, there it is. All right, let's talk about criminals helping criminals. Yay. That's always fun. And by fun, I mean horrible. Just to let you know. President Donald Trump continues to upend law and order. Yes, that's right. This time pardoning a sheriff from Virginia who was convicted for accepting bribes. Oh, you got bribed? Oh, great. Great. Oh, I can't believe the Biden administration would be so unfair to you as to not let you accept those bribes. Here's a pardon. Now, on Monday, the criminal president announced a pardon for former Culpeper County Sheriff Scott Jenkins, who accepted more than $75,000 in bribes. Yeah, not the legal kind either. The definitely illegal bribes. Okay. Now, apparently Donald Trump was like, actually, no, you know what? You would be stupid not to accept those bribes. I mean, I would. I'd totally take it, just like I take that plane from Qatar, which is totally also a bribe. Now, Jenkins was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison after being convicted of conspiracy, honest services fraud, and bribery last year, according to the Daily Beast. In a statement to True Social, though, Trump characterized that prosecution as overzealous. Of course. Quote, "This sheriff is a victim of an overzealous Biden Department of Justice and doesn't deserve to spend a single day in jail," Trump wrote on his platform. Hold on.
Truth, essential.
Okay. He is a wonderful person who was prosecuted by the radical left monsters and left for dead. Bro, he was in more danger of a cheeseburger, okay, than dying in prison for, I don't know, but because of the prisoners, I guess. Well, although, to be fair, being a sheriff, I'm sure he put away a certain amount of unsavory characters, so maybe they might have been interested in revenge. I don't know. But that said, I can really see how Trump thinks that he is a wonderful person. Not only was he a MAGA supporter, of course, but like Donald Trump, totally put unqualified people into positions of power in exchange for money. So that sounds familiar, right? Especially the unqualified people and the money as well. Now, Jenkins had been accused by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Virginia of taking tens of thousands of dollars worth of bribes in exchange for appointing businessmen from Northern Virginia to serve as auxiliary sheriffs. Auxiliary sheriffs. Apparently, you know, in Virginia, they didn't have enough sheriffs. They needed some additional auxiliary sheriffs. Don't you know? Now, unfortunately, these sheriffs, they didn't really, well, know what to do with their power. Or maybe they did. Okay, because they decided to use their positions to get away with traffic tickets and to carry concealed weapons without permits. Oh, okay, so there you go. Officials also said that none of the men who paid for the positions were trained for the roles or vetted, of course, and none ever rendered any kind of law enforcement service to the sheriff's department. Unqualified people, great, because of course. I mean, is anyone surprised? No. Anyone surprised that Donald Trump would then pardon that person for doing these things? Not at all. I mean, look at the people Donald Trump has appointed to his own cabinet. You got Fox News hosts, okay, BXF, who loves to share his signal chats, okay, with reporters and invite them in. Yay. Oh, right. Fun times. And then, of course, Janine Pirro, that's another one. Sean Duffy. Again, all of these people deeply unqualified. Pretty much everyone. RFK Jr. as the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Can you, the person who swims in literal feces infested water? I mean, come on. Oh, yeah, no, grandkids, go ahead and jump on in. The water's just fine. Forget them floating turds. Okay? Really? That's what he's doing. Okay? These people, that guy's supposed to be in charge of the nation's health. Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. Stupid. Okay. And so, yes, deeply unqualified people who are generally just using their positions to enrich themselves and, of course, to going after Donald Trump's enemies. Okay. So this pardon appears to be a no-brainer for him. Okay. Yes. He's like, oh, yeah, that guy. Yeah, no, that reminds me of me. So I'm going to let this guy right out. Along with the criminals, the rapists, the scam artists, all getting pardons from Trump. I don't know how anybody with any functional brain cells could believe that Donald Trump is the president for law and order. The man has 34 felony convictions, has gotten away completely scot-free from any, any punishment for these crimes. And it's because the United States, we do not punish the rich and powerful. We just don't. Especially if they're a right-winger, okay? If a poor person did half or even a quarter of what Donald Trump did, they would be not just in jail, probably under the jail, okay? And that's the reality. Yes, we have a criminal administration that is helping criminals. I know. And by the way, I'm not talking about like, oh, we shouldn't do prison reform or anything like that. No, that's not what this is for, okay? This is not what he's doing. He's not just, releasing the criminals so that he can do just this great prison reform. No, he's making room, at least this is my opinion on this one. I believe he is making room in the prisons for his political enemies. Okay, that's it. That's it. This man, he wants to lock people up who oppose him and is letting out the people who support him. Not everybody, of course. I got a couple of exceptions for this one, and that is both George Santos, aka Anthony DeValder, okay, or whatever name that he's using today, and the Tiger King, Joe Exotic. They have both practically begged this administration for a pardon to absolutely no avail. Why? I mean, I don't know. I can only speculate. Maybe it's because they're not useful to him. I mean, what power does George Santos have? None, really. And I don't know. Also could be the fact that they're both openly gay. I don't know how much that actually has to do with any of this, but who knows? It is an interesting fact that he's keeping the gay MAGAs locked up. While letting out people who have literally preyed on children. That's right. Some of those Capitol rioters either had previous offenses related to raping children or went on to commit those crimes. Okay? So, yes. Oh, but those people, of course, helped Donald Trump. So apparently you thought that they were wonderful enough to get the pardon. The presidential pardon. It really does show you who Trump and his friends that are advising him want to see back out in the streets, as opposed to those that they're allowing to stay behind bars. So there you go. moving on here. Let's get to Ron DeSantis. Oh yeah. We got the heel, everybody. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis faced some jeers after showing up to a WWE wrestling event at the Youngling Center over the weekend. Let's take a look. You love to see it. I know I do. Okay, but yes, sure, he was heckled and people said, you suck, you suck, you suck. But why? I mean, especially when you would assume to be, you know, this audience is a prime MAGA audience. Look, obviously not all wrestling fans are MAGA. I've got a lot of friends who, you know, are leftists who enjoy wrestling. Okay. And you know, like WWE, even though there are some issues with labor and of course former head Vince McMahon, and so you know there's that problem, right? But that said, even the ones who are MAGA, I don't think they'll have a very good opinion of Meatball Ron. All right, after all, Ron did try running against Donald Trump in the primary and fell flat on his face. It was not only an embarrassment, and by the way, those lifted heels, right, made it so that his fall on his face was worse than it could have been. Okay, just saying. But all right, yes. Not only was this an embarrassment to him for failing to win over the MAGA crowd, it's also seen as, I think, the ultimate betrayal by some of them, even after he groveled to Trump by endorsing him. Still, there may be other points of contention here. You know, I think that it's part of his rule in Florida, which has not been very good. Not been very good at all. Look, DeSantis also getting back to, getting away from Florida for a second. I know we all want to get away from Florida, but before I get to that, DeSantis did side with Elon and Trump on H-1B visas. Now, wait a minute. You might think, well, but he sided with Donald Trump. Yes, against MAGA. You see, there's a bit of a contention here. I talked about this. You had Steve Bannon and Laura Loomer that were like, how dare you support more H-1B visas? How dare you? We hate that program. But Elon and Trump were like, no, we love it. That we can import workers and we can exploit them and we can pay them less. What's not to like? We love that program. Whereas MAGA's like, yes, we're bringing in people from other countries, specifically India. We hate them because they're brown. But also, yes, they're also taking the jobs, and there are Americans that are training the replacements, and there's a lot of reasons that we don't like the H-1B program. And yes, I even don't like the H-1B program because it is able to be abused. And I think it does need reform. That said, Trump and Elon are like, oh, yeah, no, we like that. Laura Loomer and MAGA and Bannon are like, we hate this program. And mainly because we're racist, but we do hate this program. Okay. So there's that. I think, though, that this issue with Trump versus DeSantis it doesn't really have anything to do with policy and more about their personalities. Donald Trump just doesn't like Ron DeSantis because he dared to challenge him. That's enough. That's enough. All right. Now, in the most recent FU, Trump has even endorsed Byron Donalds as the next governor for Florida. Now, Casey DeSantis, since Ron is term limited out, he's trying to get his wife, Casey, to succeed him. And not even Trump's going for that. Trump's like, no, Byron Donalds all the way. That said, there's a lot of other non-Trump related reasons why people might think Ron DeSantis sucks. For one, his policies in Florida. They have been backfiring pretty, spectacularly, okay? Immigration, for example. SB 1718 has made it a felony to knowingly transport someone with undocumented status into the state, which, again, a lot of those immigration things have hurt farm workers, okay, agricultural workers, 40% of whom are estimated to be undocumented, okay? So harming those people, they don't want to show up to work because they're afraid of getting deported, and their family members who might even be here legally or have legal status, well, they still don't want to take the risk of bringing or transporting someone that may be undocumented to work. So they're not showing up. A lot of them have actually left the state. So that has hurt the farm or the farm owners, I should say, the farmers. You got produce rotting in the fields because these workers refuse to show up. And I understand that. Now, of course, that has an effect on prices. Prices are going up. People are being pissed off because of that. And the farmers are being bankrupted. The state economy has lost billions of dollars in revenue. And so, yeah, that's some of the reasons that Ron DeSantis and the Republicans there suck. And it's not just the policies on immigration that are hurting him and his ridiculous war against wokeness, but there's also the Centene scandal. Okay. If you're not familiar, it's where this company Centene basically defrauded Medicaid to the tune of $67 million. They ended up having to pay the state back. They did, but $10 million of it did not go back into the Medicaid fund. Oh, no. $10 million was funneled to the Casey DeSantis affiliated Hope Florida Foundation and was used eventually to attack a referendum opposed by her husband, which would have legalized cannabis in the state. That referendum lost, even though it did get a majority in support of it. Yeah, 56% of voters in Florida wanted to legalize cannabis, but couldn't because you needed a 60% threshold. So yes, there's that. Now, Attorney General James Uthmeier, a DeSantis appointee, who also served as his chief of staff during the Centene deal while running a group called Keep Florida Clean. It's a PAC that was aimed at defeating the cannabis bill. Uthmeier is a huge player in the Centene scandal. Okay. And so, but because of his position, no one is actually able to go after DeSantis and anyone involved in this literal theft of Medicaid money. Yes, you have had some Republicans going after or attempting to go after DeSantis to no avail. Okay. That money, by the way, was dispersed to a pair of dark money nonprofits, which transferred that $8.5 million to Uthmeier's Political Action Committee. So, yeah. Now, of course, DeSantis has been calling this entire thing, oh, it's just pure politics. But to me, it smells a lot like corruption. Yes. Which might have something to do with why people hate Ron DeSantis. Look, I think there's a great many reasons why people think Ron DeSantis sucks. Take your pick, right? It could be the fact that, all these different things. It could be a combination, or it could be the fact that he's not very likable. He's kind of weird. He's awkward. He eats pudding with his fingers, like weird. Who does that past the age of 5? You should really know how to use a spoon by then. I don't know. But regardless of whatever reason they hate Ron, telling him that he sucks will never not be true and never not be funny. And there you go. Moving on. go to a serious story here, and that is transgender people are arming themselves. That's right. Following the victory of President Donald Trump in the November election, transgender Americans have been arming themselves for defense. Now, this is according to an article in Uncloseted Media. One woman featured in this article, and I definitely suggest that you read it, said that she had filled her garage with around 20 to 30,000 rounds of ammunition and up to a year's worth of estrogen. Estrogen has about a 1 to 2.5 year shelf life. So, stocking up on ammo and E. Hell yeah. Now, she told Uncloseted Media, and her name is Erin, and that's all the information that she wants to give. And that's because of all the threats against transgender people, which I'm going to get into. But she said this, quote, "Starting with the election, I became very concerned." Yeah, concerned about her safety, concerned about the safety of her community. Yeah, I would be concerned too, so I'm not at all surprised. Look, since taking office, Donald Trump has signed a bunch of executive orders, essentially rolling back transgender rights and making it so that people will no longer, be incentivized, I guess. I think that's probably the wrong way to put it, but they have dehumanized transgender Americans, okay? And to the point of where, no, we're not even going to treat you as human beings, that you don't even exist. They've been erased, even though they're still here and they've always been here and they always will be here. They have been officially erased from the government, by the government. But again, it doesn't surprise me here that trans people are arming up. And honestly, it doesn't bother me. Okay. I'm not one of those people who wants to see the end of the Second Amendment. I've never been against that. I have been for common sense gun regulations, of course. And I do support the Second Amendment. It's just that I don't support the weirdo right-wing version, where, anybody can get any weapon at any time and there are no rules and everybody's armed and all that. A polite society is an armed society. No, an armed society is where everybody's pointing guns at each other 24/7. That's not a good society. That's broken. Okay. But that said, there are legitimate reasons to arm yourselves, and guess what? This is one of those. All right. The trans community has been facing an all-out assault. I've been talking about this for some time. Nearly 3/4 of transgender Americans now have fear facing physical violence. That is disastrous. And as a result, of course, they are arming themselves. They're in training programs to, learning how to safely use, store, and operate firearms, as of course is their right. They're buying guns. They're learning self-defense. They're doing what they need to do to survive, to defend themselves. And there is a very, very good reason here. In 2023, LGBTQ people were 5 times more likely than non-LGBTQ people to be the victim of a violent crime, according to a study from the Williams Institute. An FBI report found that there were 547 recorded incidents targeting a victim's gender identity in that same year, which was up from 469 the year prior. So it is getting worse for LGBTQ plus people. And trans women have been facing the majority of this, the brunt of this anti-trans rhetoric, of this legislation that has dehumanized them. You have bathroom bans, you have restrictions from sports participation, and even, of course, attacks on their entire existence. With all that going on, who could blame them for wanting to defend themselves? And look, when all that stuff happens, when there is so much propaganda and rhetoric against them, of course there's going to be violence. It's according to Heidi Byrick, the co-founder of the Global Project Against Hate and Extremism. She said that sustained bigotry translates into violence. Quote, "There's a link between online hate and real-world violence in terms of hate crimes. Barrick told Uncloseted Media, when you demonize communities, it does link to violence. I mentioned the women, one of the trans women cited, Erin. She said, look, all of this stuff, I already know this. And that's why I have been motivated to prepare myself. Not that I want a confrontation. I just want to make sure that I'm ready. And not just against violence from people around, right? Bigots who have been empowered, but by the administration as well. In fact, she says, I think it's quite likely the administration will at least try to say that being transgender is a mental health condition. Her biggest fear is then the Trump administration using that designation to put transgender people into literal concentration camps. This is not outlandish. I have many transgender friends who are saying the same thing, that they are concerned that they're going to be herded into these camps. And look, I would say that fear is absolutely warranted. Look at what they're doing to immigrants. Look at what they're doing to undocumented and documented immigrants. They're putting them into camps in El Salvador. So this doesn't surprise me at all. And so as a safety precaution, she is moving from a red state to a blue state and is collecting weapons and ammunition. And she's not the only one. Aaron Palat, the Pink Pistols national coordinator and the founder of something called Operation Blazing Sword, which, you know, helps educate and train people in the proper and safe use of firearms, says, quote, there's definitely been a lot of interest and a lot of concern over what's going on in the government. Now, they started, by the way, that organization following the 2016 Pulse nightclub mass shooting. Okay, so after that happened and the government basically did nothing to stem the hatred against the LGBTQ plus community, these people were like, you know what? We really need to start looking out for each other because ain't nobody else looking out for us. In fact, here's what Palat said, quote, a lot of queer people went, wow, it really doesn't matter what I do or say. There's still people who want me dead. And they're going to take action to make that happen. And so they realized the danger they had already been in. It just became personal after Pulse. Yeah, absolutely. Now, getting back to Barrick, she says that direct violence like that nightclub shooting and structural violence, such as anti-trans laws at the state and federal level, have given queer people a good reason to arm themselves and to train themselves. Quote, this kind of situation where you're in it that makes you want to arm up because you feel like the state can't protect you, or in a lot of cases, they won't protect you. It's made all the worse when the federal government actually buys into the same anti-LGBTQ ideas that the Pulse shooter exhibited. There's another trans woman, Carly, who said that Project 2025 is what convinced her to arm up for her own defense. Now, Carly was always in favor of the Second Amendment and even ran a gun store, right? And then at some point she got out of it because she's like, I don't know if the guns that I sell are going to end up pointed back at me one day. So she had gotten out of that. But thanks to the Trump administration and everything that had been going on, she's like, oh no. Oh, not good. I read Project 2025 and it's going to criminalize us for even trying to exist. And so she said, I saw the writing on the wall. Others like Dorothy were threatened with physical violence, with slurs, just out in the open. She says that there's been numerous times over the last 20 years, particularly online, that I had faced that. And look, here's the thing, though. Okay, so yes, did people actually think that this wasn't going to happen? That people weren't going to arm themselves as a result of all the unprecedented threats against the transgender community? If you threaten a community enough, they are going to try to work to protect themselves in whatever way they can. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. And it's amazing how the people on the far right, for example, they tend to forget that those on the left can also buy guns. It's like there's this weird belief on the right that leftists hate guns. We don't. We don't at all. Okay, there's plenty of lefty gun owners out there, okay, who believe in, yes, common sense regulations and gun safety, but also believe in the right to defend yourself. I mean, there is that saying, right? If you go far left enough, you get your guns back. It's true. And that's where many in the trans community are at. They are leftists, and that means making sure to arm themselves to protect themselves. Okay? And again, this is not to do violence against people. The vast majority of violence, all right, especially when it comes to the trans community, right, is directed towards the trans community from people who are generally white cis males. Okay? And that's the reality here. And so, yes, they are defending themselves against that, but not just that, but also the potential of state violence being used against them. I really hope it doesn't come to that. I don't. I really hope it doesn't. Okay? But here you have even the Democratic Party that has been throwing trans people under the bus. All right? James Carville, that corpse, essentially, is kind of, oh, the Democratic Party is weak and woke. They're weak, all right. And that is a good example of how they're weak. They are weak because they don't stick to any principles, because they don't have any principles other than getting paid by the big donors. That's the big problem with the Democratic Party. Not that they're too woke or that they're defending trans people too much. They didn't defend trans people at all. They let them twist in the wind while the right wing constantly demonized them. And now we are in the situation that we're in, and transgender people are fearing for their lives and are not shrinking away, but are going to protect themselves in whatever way they can. Okay? So the Democratic Party has not exactly done anything to make trans people feel safer. So nobody blames them. I don't blame them for doing this. I wish we lived in a country that actually protected people that were actually at risk for violence, but we don't. And so again, what choice are they left with than to prepare to have to defend themselves? No, it wasn't just Alyssa Slotkin that said that. It was James Carville, too. All right. Trans individuals are targeted by the right for no other reason than being different. 100%. It's exactly. All right. And while trans people are being demonized and criminals being let out of prison, this next story is bound to infuriate you. Oh, yeah. A judge in Utah is facing backlash for comments he made as he sentenced a man convicted of sexually exploiting children. So, Aiden Hoffman, pictured here, 22, was sentenced last week after pleading guilty to 2 felony charges of sexual exploitation of a minor. According to court documents, Hoffman possessed and distributed multiple images of child sexual abuse material. Now, during his sentencing hearing, however, Judge Don Torgerson had decided to be lenient. Very, very lenient. In fact, he twice cited Hoffman's privilege as he ultimately decided not to require him to serve any additional jail time or to even pay a fine. Wait, what? Huh? So why don't we get into the details here? Okay, so first, the charges against Hoffman. He was charged last August in 7th District Court with multiple felony counts of sexual exploitation of a minor. He actually spent about 4 months in jail before getting out in December with conditions. Conditions. Like, oh, you can't leave the state. Okay, so now he is from Maine. Okay, and now is living in Utah. Okay, so he's from Maine, and whatever. Okay, so now Hoffman ended up pleading guilty to 2 felonies, but 10 others were dropped. Why? Why? During his sentencing, prosecutors asked for prison time for Hoffman, arguing that it would send a clear message about the severity of his crimes. Yes, his crimes were very, very severe. But George Torgerson said, you know what? No, I'm not feeling it. Privilege, right? What privilege? Hoffman was then given suspended prison sentences, probation for 4 years, and has to register as a sex offender. That's it. That's what he got. 4 years and on the sex offender registry. Wow. Now, during the hearing, the judge referred to the time that Hoffman had already spent in jail, saying that 112 days is a lot of jail time. No kidding. It's a lot of jail time for someone of your age who comes from some level of privilege. Like, I don't know about you, but I think privilege should not matter when it comes to sentencing. In fact, the level of privilege this young man had received should make it so that it's more important to sentence him to the full amount in relation to the crimes. Okay? Yes, I'm about fairness, right? He ruined children's lives. And he should be in jail for a very, very long time. But of course, the privilege that he has is the fact that he is young, white, and male. What, you think they'd let a black person off who did the same crime? You know, they go, oh, what privilege. No, of course they wouldn't. Now, of course, the Grand County Attorney General, Grand County Attorney Stephen Stocks, he was irate over this, and of course, for good reason. Let me read his quote. He said, something like this shocked my conscience so much that I feel failing to act or failing to speak out wouldn't be doing a justice or service to those kids out there. Yeah. And that's it. He added that the social or economic status should not play a role in determining the sentence of a defendant or an offender. Quote, we should look at defendants and the actions that they've done and not make it lesser because of their affluent status or their privilege. The investigator spent more time likely investigating this case than the defendant spent in jail. Yes, and again, for targeting children. Children! Look, I know it's Utah, but what are you doing? What are you doing in that state? I mean, this is almost worse than the affluenza judge. Or what about the guy who raped a woman behind a dumpster and then got away with it? You know, because of his privilege. What is it with judges and young white men who do these horrific crimes? I like what? They care so little about the victims, okay? These judges do, and care so much about the perpetrators and their lives. But what about the lives of these kids? What about them? They are forever scarred by this predator, and he gets no additional jail time? Really? 112 days? That's it? There's people who smoked a joint that have received more prison time than a child rapist. And when that happens, you know the justice system is absolutely freaking broken. Okay? And it's not just, by the way, Stocks who spoke out against this. Surprisingly, you've got Republicans, which again, it's Utah. So you've got Republicans like House Speaker Mike Schultz, who posted on social media on Saturday, calling on Torgerson to resign. Quote, this is deeply troubling and indicative of a broader pattern within the judiciary. Such decisions not only fail to deliver justice for victims, in this case, children, but also erode public confidence in the legal system. Judge Torgerson's comments and decision are a failure of justice and cannot be ignored. He must resign. He should not be able to continue sitting on the bench and serving the people of this great state. I mean, I'm going to have to disagree with it being a great state if they're allowing stuff like this to happen, but I get the sentiment. Carrie Ann Lisenby, another Republican who's running for House Majority Leader, wrote this on social media, quote, "This is terrible." Representative Tyler Clancy commented on her post, responding, "Absolutely shocking and a horrible message sent to victims of child sex abuse." Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And again, these people, say that, oh, we want to protect the children. But then you have judges like this that are like, well, actually, no, let's protect the privileged guy. The privileged white guy. Oh, great. Yeah. Look, it is good to see people pissed off about it, especially Republicans, but what will they actually do in this situation? Probably nothing. And it's not knocking them, okay, specifically. I mean, what can they actually do to change this? I don't know. That said, there is a little bit of hopium here, okay? Hoffman, as I mentioned, he is from Maine. And it appears that he is also facing some trouble over this in Maine. He's actually been charged with 3 Class C felonies for possession of sexually explicit material relating to a child under age 12. Oh, that case happens to be unresolved currently. So, I don't know, perhaps there, it is very possible that we could end up seeing some justice after all. But, look, here's the thing. It's very clear that this young man is a predator. He should not be free to roam the streets. And perhaps, maybe the justice system ought to actually do what it's supposed to do and not only dispense a little justice for the victims, but also to protect society at large from a very obvious predator. Okay. All right. So that's the stories that I have today. Hopefully y'all enjoyed the show. I want to thank VMan29397 for the very kind super chat, saying the Dems are lucky the Electoral College exists and keeps a third party from usurping them from the left. Otherwise, they will end up like their Puerto Rican counterpart in the PPD, who are being wiped out by the center-left PIP. Yes. I'm definitely going to need to look into more detail here in the Puerto Rican parties and all that. But thank you for that super chat. I really appreciate that. And you're right. I agree with the sentiment. Democratic Party is really lucky that they have a stranglehold on the party system, that there is that duopoly here that has been established where you don't have a third party that can come in and overturn the apple cart, because and that's unfortunate because this apple cart is rotten to the core, okay, and does need to be overturned. There needs to be fresh blood, especially in the Democratic Party, which is a gerontocracy at this point, and there needs to be some replacements, and there needs to be a progressive future going forward. So I agree with all that. All right. Rachel Atwood asks, did this freak remind the judge too much of his own son to punish adequately? I thought about that. Oh, there for the grace of God go I, right? Or my son, or, people that I know. Obviously, I can't throw the book at him. Privilege. Oh, if only he knew the irony of that statement. So, anyway, thank you for those comments. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the super chat. If you want to support the show, go and become a member. Hit the join button below if you're on YouTube. Become a subscriber if you're on Facebook or, of course, on Twitch. You can also use the Bezos Bucks So instead of letting your subscription, if you have Amazon Prime, go to Jeff Bezos, you can send it to me instead. Send it to another Jeff that I think has deserved it, has earned it. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Just for the fact that I'm not Jeff Bezos. Okay. If anything, that is one reason that I definitely deserve that money. But anyway, to give me context, says VMan 29397. 2024 was the first time the PPD, Popular Democratic Party, failed to win a single district in the race for governor. Wow. So yeah, I definitely need to look more into that, into what's going on in Puerto Rico. So that said, thank you all again for watching here. Oh, Frederick Cooper on Facebook says Trump loves criminals because he's been one all of his pathetic life. True. Very, very true. Thank you for that. All right, everybody. Thank you again for tuning in. Like and share the stream. Oh, sign up to become a patron. Patreon.com/JeffWaldorf. And support the channel that way. That said, have a great afternoon, and I will see you hopefully again right here tomorrow around the same time, same place. Love you all, and remember, change begins with you. We'll see you later.